There isn't a lot of room to bring down the cost of manufacturing. The difference is the price we sell it at. So in the US, people without insurance, again, averages here, can spend up to $300 per vial of insulin, and you need between 2 to 4 vials per month. The projected manufacturing cost, generally, not for us specifically, just generally based on a few different papers, is between $2 and $10 to make that vial. So, the manufacturing cost is $2 to $10, but it's being sold at $300. That's a huge gap. And that's where we're going to play in. We're playing in that gap. And so our goal is to bring it starting around $30 per vial and then slowly bring it down even further as we economies of scales, get our manufacturing process to become more efficient.
Welcome back to the second half of our conversation with Eric Moyal, founder of Project Insulin. If you joined us for part 1, you know we're tackling one of the more stubborn problems in biologics, making an essential medicine affordable without cutting corners on the science. In this part, we continue the discussion, from the technical realities of development to the strategy and mission that hold it all together. Let's pick up where we left off. Are you juggling the complexities of CMC development while trying to enjoy the beauty of biotech? Have you ever wondered if there's a way to simplify bioprocessing? Welcome to the Smart Biotech Scientist podcast, where we're diving headfirst into the very challenges you face. We're breaking it down, demystifying the jargon, and giving you the keys to unlock your full potential. I'm your host, David Brolman, and I get it. With 15 plus years in the biotech industry, I face the same challenges you do. There's a way to simplify and streamline so you can remove complexity, you can skip trials and errors, deliver without delay your groundbreaking therapy to clinics and market, and still enjoy every single step. Do you want to learn how industry experts and I did it? Grab a cup of coffee and your favorite notebook and pen. Now is the time to take your bioprocessing game to the next level. Let's smarten up biotech.
Now, I would like to tap into perhaps your expertise a bit more because you have a fundraising background and a non-profit background. And we do have an affordability crisis, not only for insulin, but also for a lot of drugs. That's a big one. I'm curious, Eric, how does developing a biosimilar as a non-profit actually change your decision-making and your whole business model?
The first thing, which we've touched on at the beginning, was shareholders versus stakeholders. We don't have a fiduciary duty to investors. David, if you gave me $1 million today, I would say thank you, and I would take you out to dinner. But I don't owe you anything other than ensuring that we make this insulin as affordable as possible. And so that kind of creates a freedom. There's less pressure for us, it's donors, but from investors more generally to, I don't want to say taint the mission, but to stray from the mission of making insulin as affordable as possible. So I think that's the first piece, is that we don't have that pressure. On the other hand, we also don't have the incentive. There's no incentive of ROI. So if, David, you give me $1 million, or if I'm trying to convince you to give me $1 million, if you don't really passionately care about this and really believe in the mission and the idea that this could change the lives of hundreds of thousands, millions of people, it's going to be really hard to get you on board. And so, truthfully, a lot of conversations we've had with potential donors has been, well, if you were a for-profit, I would have invested no problem. And I think that's a simplification. That's like very easy for them to say when they're rejecting me. I don't actually think they would have given us the money if we were a for-profit, but I'd say that's probably one of the main things, is that investor-donor relationship. On one hand, we don't have that pressure to create ROI. But on the other hand, we don't have the incentive, the carrot on the stick, that is ROI. So it's the biggest structural difference. Otherwise, it's the same thing. We're a life sciences company that happens to not be trying to make a profit. And I think something that trips people up is, do nonprofits make money? Yes, of course, we have revenue. So we will sell the insulin at cost. What cost is our manufacturing plus operating expenses divided by how many vials we sell. And obviously, this is a simplistic model that will be much more fleshed out. But We have to cover our expenses, but those expenses are also subsidized by donations and grants. Again, let's say in 5 years, 6 years, when our insulin is on the market and FDA approved, if our expenses make $10 million, which again, I'm just making things up, and we get a donation for $10 million, then we can very strongly subsidize the price that patients pay because we're at cost. That's the whole point. I think that's another big piece is the ability to subsidize. And the last thing is it's different. There's no knock on it and there's no reason why it's better or worse necessarily for being a nonprofit. But yeah, it's just different. And a lot of people are uncomfortable with different.
Especially in an industry like the biotech, where there's a lot of, how should I say it maybe correctly? There's perhaps some risk aversion or at least some resistance to change sometimes. Now, if I just rephrase what you just said, Eric, what I understand is that the funding mechanism is very different. You approach very different people, and obviously there's no return on investment. On the other hand, on the cost side, it's very similar to a profit business because I imagine there is very little margin to reduce costs of development and cost of manufacturing because you're using the same raw materials, the same facilities, you're working with the CDMO. I imagine there is very little room to bring down the cost there.
Absolutely. That is 100% correct. There isn't a lot of room to bring down the cost of manufacturing. The difference is the price we sell it at. So in the US, people without insurance, again, averages here, can spend up to $300 per vial of insulin, and you need between 2 to 4 vials per month. The projected manufacturing cost, generally, not for us specifically, just generally based on a few different papers, is between $2 and $10 to make that vial. So, the manufacturing cost is $2 to $10, but it's being sold at $300. That's a huge gap. And that's where we're going to play in. We're playing in that gap. And so our goal is to bring it starting around $30 per vial and then slowly bring it down even further as we economies of scales, get our manufacturing process to become more efficient, et cetera. But I think it's at cost, but it's as close to, because if manufacturing is 10, then you have to add the CDMO's profit margin, and then you have to add our operating and then shipping. So that's kind of the gist of how we get to 30. But I think the manufacturing costs will be the same or very similar unless we do have a really good team, but unless we somehow come up with some new patentable operating efficiency thing, I don't expect it to go down more. And again, the goal of our organization is not to create innovation in the sense of the drug, it's to make sure it's available. That is also something that you have to remind yourself of all the time because there are all more efficient ways to get higher titer and optimizing the strain and all these other things. And well, that's cool, but that's for a high R&D organization, not for someone trying to make a generic.
How will your distribution model look like? Because the reason I'm asking this question is even for currently approved insulin options, the manufacturing cost is not crazy high. So what I understand, it's this high price of $300 comes mainly from the distribution from the middleman. So what is your way to not go through the middleman and directly to the patient?
Another, again, timing. We started in COVID. And so the idea of a mail order pharmacy had already existed, but it was really taking shape at that point. And so our idea is a mail order pharmacy. We would just put your prescription in and we'll ship it to you. And then that way there is no middleman. The middleman is UPS or whatever. It's not a whole slew of organizations like insurance, pharmacies, wholesalers, etc. It would just be straight to patient via our website. Now, there are other ways to optimize that. Instead of shipping it to individuals, if we could ship it to spaces, that would be a larger shipping container of insulin, which would reduce our shipping per vial cost. And so the other wrinkle would be partnering with local and federal healthcare clinics who some of them do free care, but who provide affordable care for patients who are struggling. And so by making those partnerships happen over the next few years, instead of sending Joe 3 vials a month, we would be sending the clinic 100,000 vials a month. And so then again, we're bringing the price down for the patient in the long terms. Those are partnerships we're working on as well. And there's a few other fun ones. Let's say globally, you want to distribute to some country that doesn't have access to a lot of insulin. You can do it through UNICEF or the UN. So instead of sending it to individuals in that country, I would send it to the UN and then they would take care of the distribution. I mean, we'd have to win the contract, but that is another way, again, to keep costs low while also ensuring distribution to the people who need it most. That's our general distribution model is first, direct-to-patient mail order pharmacy, second, partnerships with clinics, and third, global partnerships with large organizations who already have distribution set up. Again, our goal is to not reinvent the wheel, and we really work hard to ensure that everything we do is not reinventing the wheel, because if we do try to do that, that adds cost, that adds delays and lead time and all these other things that aren't central to the mission.
What are potential roadblocks you're facing as you're significantly changing the distribution model?
You're kind of spot on here that the big thing is not actually the drug development. The drug development issues is, can we raise the money? The distribution issues are, how are you going to get it to patients? And so finding the right partners is going to be a big issue. The time it'll take to build those relationships is going to take a few years. So we're lucky that drug development is going to take some time, but we do have to ensure that those relationships are in place by the time we get FDA approval. We're on a timer here. And so I'd say that's probably one of the bigger ones. Of course, ensuring that we have the best possible relationship with the FDA. Our fill finish site will be in the US, so that will help with distribution and ensuring that we have supply chain. I was going to say that would be a roadblock for distribution and supply chain potentially, but fill finish will be here, so that will hopefully help as well. But I think building out those partnerships, either we're going to build our own mail order pharmacy or we'll partner with someone. There's a cool nonprofit in St. Louis, Missouri, who does nonprofit mail order pharmacy, and they ship to all 50 US states. And so St. Louis is in the middle of the country, which is great for distribution. But, partnering would be a really big boon for us as well. So anyway, building those partnerships and locking that all down would have to be before we finish phase 1, essentially, in order to build out the rollout enough. I'd say the biggest issues are kind of building those partnerships and ensuring that we have the team in place to track insulin going around the country, right?
For a founder or scientist listening who also would like to solve the affordability issue or challenges, what is the most important thing they should understand before starting and going down a similar path like you?
I think there are many ways to do this. The first thing is my expertise is in fundraising. So I went nonprofit route because that is what I know, what I'm comfortable with. I don't think you have to go the nonprofit route. There are public benefit corporations. There are S Corps as well. There are other ways to go about your corporate design to create a sense of helping with accessibility and affordability. And, you can make profit as well and whatever. And so I think there's that piece. But then I think for a scientist, raising money is hard. And when you're doing a generic drug company, if that's the path, then it's not specifically sexy. And so it will be hard to get investment. I do think that nonprofit was the correct route, not just for me, but for this, because it affects so many people, because it is such a large issue and a well-known issue. But for other medications, that might not be the case. I do get a lot of leeway when it comes to introducing our organization because everyone knows about how expensive insulin is and everyone knows somebody that has diabetes. And then I guess the last thing would be make sure that you're really in it, because it's not a short process. We're 5.5 years in, and as of today, as of this recording, we are signing our contract with our CDMO, which means we're starting drug development in July, which I can now officially announce. But it took 5.5 years to get to the starting line. Think about what that means. As a scientist, it's different, right? You probably have a bench that you can do some of this early drug development work, proof of concept, blah, blah, blah. Anyway, I don't know. I guess my advice is it takes time, be patient, and ensure that you're really in it, because it is hard and it is lonely. You're the only person doing what you're doing.
And now, as you're looking back on the journey so far, what is your biggest lesson you have learned?
It's interesting. Last night, I went out for drinks with my girlfriend because we were celebrating this drug development launch or starting. And we were thinking about what has been the things that have happened over the last 5 years, been the biggest pitfalls, the greatest successes, and the things that we're most excited about moving forward. And I think there's all the science that I learned. I know what reverse phase cleaving step even means. I know what a plasmid is. All these scientific, it's fun, it's cool. These are all things I would have never thought I would learn in my lifetime. time. But I think the biggest lesson is just getting the right people around you is so important. And we were discussing how in the early days, so at nonprofits, you have to have a board of directors to start one, which is not the same for for-profit companies. And so the board was my partner, my girlfriend, and a friend of mine who's a lawyer. That was the original board. It was me and those two. And a lot of our early conversations with them, like telling me no. Like, no, you can't do this. No, we don't agree to do that. And at the time, I hated it. Like every time I would go into a board meeting, I'd be sweating and nervous and so worried that they were going to say no to me. In hindsight now, I'm like, those first 2 years, there were no stakes at all when it came to the work we were doing because no one knew who we were and we didn't have any money, so it didn't matter. But getting to hear you guys say no until I came back with something really good set the stage so that when I did have important meetings, I wasn't coming in asking for silly things. I came in having real hard and simple things to ask for and want and expect from people. And it's because of those 2 years learning and growing. And so I think the biggest lesson is as a founder, there's always this ego piece. Like, this is my idea. I'm making this happen, blah, 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 whatever. And if you don't agree with me, you just don't understand. And I think letting go of that to a degree, right? There's some things you have to stick to, but letting go of that to a degree of listening to others and kind of trusting the people that you put around you have your best interest in mind, right? Again, what I said was finding the right people is the most important thing. And if you find the right people, you can trust them when they say this is wrong or no, you shouldn't do this. Anyway, I have tons of stories that go along that, but I think you get the point.
How will the next 5 years look like for Project Insulin?
Oh man, there's the version where in 5 years we're FDA approved and the drug is on the market. There's the version where we just finish our preclinical and submit our pre-IND to the FDA. And then there's the version where it doesn't happen at all. And that's all part of the risk of fundraising being the main source. Is depending on how the fundraising goes, any one of those three options is possible. What I think is most likely is that we will have hired a few more staff to do, again, more of the scientific pieces. And we will have completed our pre-IND, submitted our package to the FDA, and we're preparing to start our phase 1 clinical. I think that's kind of where we'll be in about 5 years. A bit more of a conservative take. It could most certainly be done much faster than that. Again, as a nonprofit, the pressure is not to get an ROI as quickly as possible. It's to give ourselves the best chance to get this thing approved by the FDA. And if it takes 5 years to get through pre-IND, that is fine by me. I have nothing but time. I think that's probably the most realistic version.
Fantastic. We have covered a lot of ground today. What is the most important takeaway from our conversation?
First and foremost, Project Insulin is here to stay. We are growing. We are an excited nonprofit building insulin for everyone who needs it. But I think the biggest takeaway is that this problem isn't going away and that generic drugs in general, this is a much larger conversation than just insulin. Generic drugs should all be affordable. The whole point of the patent process was to incentivize drug companies to make new drugs, make as much money as they needed to recoup and profit, whatever. And then once the drug came off patent, that drug is supposed to be affordable and available for everyone. That was the inherent deal that was made in the 1960s or 70s when the patent laws came to be. And we've really gone away from that. And so I think the biggest takeaway here is that generic drugs should be affordable and accessible to anyone and everyone who needs it. And we are one step in the process of making that happen. And we will not be the only ones, and we can't be the only ones, but we are a big step in pushing for more affordable drugs for everyone, especially in the generic space.
Where can people connect with you and support Project Insulin?
Absolutely, and thank you. You can find us at projectinsulin.org. That is our website. On social media, we are Project Insulin for most social media platforms, or it would be project.insulin. But that would be the best way to support us. And join our newsletter. If you want to get updates without hearing every podcast episode I do, that would be the best way to continue to get updates. And we don't send them that often, but we send them whenever something important happens.
There you got it, smart biotech scientist. I will leave all the information in the show notes. Please reach out to Eric Moyal and find out how you can contribute to more affordable insulin. Well, this has been great. Eric, thank you so much for going down perhaps the unbeaten path of nonprofit, but solving a big problem. Fantastic. It has been a wonderful interview. Thank you for being on the show today.
Absolutely. Thank you, David. And thanks for taking the time to interview me and share the work we're doing.
Building a biosimilar as a nonprofit means measuring success in patient health rather than margins. And as Eric reminded us, that reframes nearly every decision along the way. Whether you're a founder, a scientist, or simply someone who cares about access, his story shows that technical rigor and mission can advance together. Please leave a review on Apple Podcasts or your favorite platform, and thank you so much for tuning in.
All right, smart scientists. That's all for today on the Smart Biotech Scientist podcast. Thank you for tuning in and joining us on your journey to bioprocess mastery. If you enjoyed this episode, please leave a review on Apple Podcasts or your favorite podcast platform. By doing so, we can empower more scientists like you. For additional bioprocessing tips, visit us at smartbiotechscientist.com. Stay tuned for more inspiring biotech insights in our next episode. Until then, let's continue to smarten up biotech.